The war was over. At least, that's what the Galactic Dominion believed. Admiral Zelrath stood aboard his flagship, watching the once proud cities of Earth reduced to little more than smoldering wreckage. The final resistance had fallen, the last human fleet shattered, their military forces annihilated. Victory was absolute. A Dominion officer approached, bowing his head. The last transmission from their leadership has ceased. Humanity is finished. Zelrath allowed himself a satisfied smirk. Pathetic creatures. So much defiance, yet so fragile. They should have surrendered. The bridge was filled with an air of arrogance, Dominion commanders celebrating their latest conquest. To them, humanity had been just another primitive species that had dared resist the inevitable. Their empire spanned thousands of worlds, countless civilizations had been brought to heel. Earth was no different. Prepare occupation forces, Zelrath ordered. Ensure no survivors interfere with the restructuring process. Dominion soldiers moved swiftly, deploying to key locations. Cities still smoldered, but infrastructure remained. Earth would soon be another Dominion-controlled world, its resources stripped, its people, those who remained, enslaved. The warlords of the Empire would demand immediate action. Efficiency was expected. Reports from the surface confirmed the obvious. Humans were scattered, leaderless. Pockets of resistance remained, but nothing organized, nothing significant. One officer hesitated before speaking. "Sir, there have been anomalies." Zelrath turned sharply. "Explain." "Certain units have gone missing. Patrols lost contact. Supply depots sabotaged. It's likely remnants of their military acting out of desperation." The Admiral scoffed. "Let them struggle. What can a few survivors do against the Dominion?" The officer nodded, though there was unease in his expression. Zelrath ignored it. He had seen this before, a conquered species refusing to accept their fate, clinging to false hope. It was always the same. The resistance would collapse under the weight of inevitability. Across the planet, Dominion forces marched through the ruins, their presence overwhelming. They set up command posts, rerouted supply chains, prepared for the final phase of their conquest. Humanity was done. And yet, something lingered. A feeling. A quiet tension beneath the air of victory. Soldiers whispered of strange occurrences. Of patrols vanishing without a trace. Of enemy movements that made no sense. Dominion technology detected nothing, yet their numbers were dwindling. Late into the night, a distress signal was intercepted. Garbled, barely understandable, but human in origin. Zelrath barely acknowledged it. "Ignore it. They are beaten. The war is over." On the surface, among the shadows of the ruins, unseen eyes watched. Silent figures moved with purpose, weaving through the wreckage like predators in their domain. Dominion arrogance blinded them. Their mistake was assuming they had won. They had forgotten rule number 1. The Dominion soldiers patrolled lazily through the ruins, their weapons at ease. Their war was over. Earth belonged to them. In the darkness, something moved. The first strike was silent. A lone soldier, pulled into the shadows. No scream. No sound. Just gone. His squadmates didn't notice. Minutes later, another vanished. Then another. The remaining troops grew uneasy. Their scanners detected nothing, yet their numbers were shrinking. The ruins around them felt alive, shifting, watching. The wind carried whispers in a language they didn't understand. The Dominion had won every battle. But they had never fought a war like this. From a hidden vantage point, the SEAL commander observed. His team moved like ghosts, unseen, unheard, leaving only death in their wake. The enemy had no counter for what they couldn't see. Their technology was superior. Their armor impenetrable. Their weapons unmatched. None of it mattered. War wasn't about firepower. It was about control. And right now, the Dominion had none. The SEALs had spent weeks studying them. Their movements. Their tactics. Their weaknesses. Dominion forces operated on predictability, efficiency. They expected battles fought on open ground, against organized forces. They didn't understand asymmetrical warfare. Humans didn't fight fair. A patrol unit reached their outpost, only to find the sentries dead, their throats slit. Blood smeared across the walls, forming a message in an alien language. The soldiers stared at it, confused, until one of them translated. "You forgot rule number 1. Fear crept in. The Dominion didn't fear lesser species. They didn't fear resistance. They didn't fear humanity. But something was wrong. Something they couldn't explain. Reports flooded in. Sabotaged supply lines. Jammed comms. High-ranking officers found dead in their own bunkers. Entire battalions wiped out without a single enemy detected. Panic spread. The SEALs pushed harder. Hit fast, disappear faster. Never in the same place twice. Strike from nowhere, leave no trace. They dismantled the occupation force piece by piece, breaking them before they could retaliate. Dominion forces deployed drones, scanners, anything to locate their attackers. Nothing worked. They weren't fighting an army. They were being hunted. Zelrath received the reports, his arrogance cracking. The resistance should have collapsed by now. Instead, it was growing. Morale among his troops was plummeting. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were prey. This was not war. This was something else. Something far worse. The Dominion forces were unraveling. What had begun as minor disruptions had escalated into something uncontrollable. Entire regiments were refusing to patrol at night. Officers demanded reinforcements that never arrived. Command posts were overrun before distress signals could be sent. Zelrath paced aboard his flagship, fists clenched behind his back. The numbers didn't make sense. His fleet had crushed Earth's military. He had billions of soldiers at his disposal. And yet, his forces were losing ground, not in open battle, but in silence. A transmission came through. Shaky, desperate. A field commander on the surface. His helmet was dented, his uniform stained with blood. "Sir, we need immediate extraction. They're everywhere. Gunfire. Screams." The feed cut to black. Zelratha's claws tapped against the console. This wasn't normal resistance. These weren't scattered survivors. This was a coordinated extermination of his forces. The SEALs weren't just killing soldiers, they were dismantling the entire occupation effort. Command centers disabled. Ammunition depots destroyed. Supply routes cut off. Every advantage the Dominion had was gone. Worse, Dominion soldiers had stopped trusting each other. Mistrust festered. Was that officer truly a superior, or was it a human in stolen armor? Was the encrypted order genuine, or a carefully planted lie? They hesitated before obeying commands, second-guessed their own strategies. Paranoia spread like wildfire. Zelrath slammed a fist against the console. Enough. He ordered full retaliation. No more standard patrols, scorched earth. If humanity wanted to fight from the shadows, he would burn the shadows down. Precision orbital strikes targeted entire city blocks, hoping to flush out the resistance. Troop movements became unpredictable, baiting human forces into traps. It didn't work. The humans adapted. They always adapted. Dominion warships reported critical system failures. Engines malfunctioned. Shields dropped unexpectedly. The humans had infiltrated their fleets, sabotaging from within. Dominion officers turned on their own engineers, accusing them of negligence, or worse, treason. A fleet commander sent a last, desperate message before his cruiser exploded from internal detonation. His voice was shaking. "They know our ships. They know our weaknesses. They know everything." The Dominion had ruled through absolute control. Now, they controlled nothing. Zelrath stared at the chaos unfolding before him. He had seen rebellion before. He had seen resistance. This was neither. This was annihilation. And it was only getting worse. Zelratha's flagship trembled under emergency sirens. His command bridge, once a place of control, was filled with frantic officers shouting over one another. Security breaches. System overrides. Internal sabotage. The humans were no longer attacking from the shadows. They were inside. A Dominion captain stumbled forward, his face drained of color. "They've infiltrated the ship. Zelrath's eyes burned with fury. Impossible. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. His soldiers were already dead before they knew they were being hunted. The humans had studied every security protocol, every response pattern. They had moved unnoticed, planting explosives, overriding systems, turning Dominion technology against itself. Gunfire erupted in the corridors outside the bridge. The muffled sounds of battle grew closer and closer until silence fell. Then the doors opened. A single human walked in, clad in black tactical gear, a rifle at his side. His face remained in the shadows. Behind him, Dominion bodies lay motionless. Zelrath gritted his teeth. "Who are you?" The human's voice was calm, cold. "The one who warned you." Zelrath's mind raced. He had seen the message. The blood-scrawled warning. The words whispered by dying soldiers. "You forgot rule number 1. Zelrath reached for his weapon, but the human was faster. In a flash, the Admiral was disarmed, shoved back against his own console. The human leaned in. "Never assume we're defeated." A sudden detonation rocked the flagship. Internal explosions cascaded through the ship's core, each one precisely placed, methodically planned. Dominion ships in orbit scrambled as the flagship's automated defenses turned against them, its own targeting systems hijacked. The Dominion fleet collapsed into chaos. Warships fired on each other, unable to distinguish friend from foe. Officers screamed into malfunctioning comms. Fighters abandoned their posts, fleeing into the void. Zelrath's vision blurred as smoke filled the bridge. His empire, his fleet, his rule, gone. All because he had underestimated the one species that refused to break. The human stepped back, leaving the doomed admiral slumped against his failing systems. As flames consumed the command bridge, a final message echoed across every Dominion channel, broadcast from an unknown source. A warning. This is only the beginning.